The human piece of this AI is probably more important than the AI.
What does that mean?
That means that AI can use sales as an example, right? AI will not take a bad sales professional and make them a good sales professional. It's not going to happen. However, what AI will do, it will take a good or great salesperson and can make them world class because they already have the skill set and the foundation of being a good sales professional. Now they're going to take these tools and make them more efficient, and they're going to be able to touch more people and do things faster with the personalization that AI brings.
Hello, RJ. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Mark, how are you today?
Very good. Thank you for being on Peak Performance Perspective, where we help entrepreneurs master health, wealth, and relationships. Now, as founder CEO of the AI CEO and former CEO of Unify F Bank and many other accolades, what does peak performance mean to you?
Personally, to me, peak performance means that you are running on all cylinders, if I use a car metaphor, that the engine's finely tuned and you're just hitting everything from a flow and stride perspective, but also looking out to the future of what's coming next. Because in the world we live in today, high performing individuals or organizations are able to pivot quickly and are very agile. And I think that I know for a fact the world that we live in today, the companies as well as people that can adapt and change and always consistently learning, they can have peak performance. And that's my definition of peak performance is always that improvement. However, playing devil's advocate or countering that, some people might say, when you get to that point, why are you seeking more? You're just running. However, I firmly believe that if you're standing still and not always looking internally into your business and working on your business, as well as working on you as a human, which is hard to do at times because we're busy with life. But really, from my perspective, peak performance comes from just internally looking at how you're doing things, what you're putting into the business, into your body. We're looking at both fronts, and then just always expanding and getting better and not beating yourself up if you have a bad day too. Self-talk is so important in the world we live in today.
Firing on all cylinders gets us far. Pivoting sometimes gets in the right direction, but sometimes that type of lifestyle can also lead to a burnout. So, how do you keep on innovating and moving forward and doing all these things after decades of success and deal with burnout?
I look at things as seasons or chapters of your life or chapters of the business. And you're right, you cannot go hard mark 24/7. For example, I'm in equipment leasing and financing. There's seasonality to that industry. So I would plan my life and my work life. And I believe in a philosophy of not life work balance, but life work integration. And when you can integrate both into the same, it helps the burnout not happen because you're just living and being who you are, but it's part of your professional life as well.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. However, to answer your question specifically with chapters, there are chapters that you have to take a break and you can be looking in peak performance. Maybe you need to focus more time on your family or you need to focus more time on you personally. Maybe you need time just to slow down. And even people today in the world we live in that go on vacation, do people really go on vacation anymore? Seriously, and I'm guilty of it, right? I tell my wife, hey, you know what? Give me 2 hours in the morning just to keep things moving. But in the same respect, it's not brain power that I'm looking at from peak performance. That's how I do it. And the other thing is when you feel like you're burning out, it's time to take time for you and focus that your body and your soul is telling you something that you need to take a break. However, we were born and raised in our society that you just push through and you just push through and keep going. However, there are times for that, but in the same respect, if you feel that you are burning out, address it sooner than later because guess what? I believe at the end, if you just keep moving, you're going to burn relationships and you're going to burn your brand and you're going to burn a lot more than you just taking a time out and stepping back. And I would hope in the world that we live in today, there's more empathy too for people around mental health and awareness, where you wouldn't be viewed upon as broken or a challenge if you called a timeout and said, hey, I need some help. I need to go work on myself for a week or a couple of weeks or what have you, and have organizations or companies applaud that and say, you know what, we need them to be on peak performance and focus like that. And burnout happens, it's real. I've experienced it. I'm sure you've experienced. If you're a high performer, you've experienced it.
High performer to high performer, and all the audience that's also listening to it. We know intellectually sometimes we need to take a break. Like you said, we know intellectually sometimes we need to slow down, but it's the emotions that get in the way. So many of us, even when we're trying to take a break, our mind is somewhere else. And then comes this frustration and anxiety. So, what are some real world strategies that you have utilized to combat that, to really be able to step out and give yourself the break that you need?
So I started recently, when I say recently, this year, that I do a brain dump at the end of every single day. All I do is I literally turn on my mic and I just talk about my day, talk about the things I accomplished, talked about things that I want to accomplish. And at that point, I feel when I do that, because I work out of my home office here, when I do that's the closure of, per se, the business day. I've gotten everything out of my head, and there's really nothing for me to think about that evening because our mind plays tricks on us. And if there's things that we know we have to do, and I talk, you can write it down, your to-do list. And all you're doing is getting that out of you, and it doesn't wear on you. And if you remember something at that evening, I'll just make a mental note of it or make a voice note of it. That has helped me tremendously because there's closure to it to
Yeah,
a certain degree, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's one thing that I've helped, but also meditation and looking internally. And I know that's a buzzword and everything of that nature. And I never believed in this stuff before, Mark. But guess what? I'm a firm believer now. I would be lost without it.
Yeah. So when you do your brain dump, you revisit it the next day? Is this your
Yes.
starting point?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my starting point the next day. So I'll also say, okay, tomorrow I'll look at my calendar. I'll also outline what I have tomorrow. And I also think mentally that helps me prepare for the next day where my brain has transitioned that this day is closed. I'm now pivoting to the next day and I'm already starting that thought process.
Your definition of success has obviously evolved over the years, and you're approaching problems days, weeks, months in a different way.
And guess what? 10 years ago, this guy never meditated. I was like, let's forget it. I got to go. Where's my next appointment? Let's go. Now it's like, you know what? I'll say to my wife, I got to go take 10 minutes for me. She goes, enjoy your meditation. And all it is just slowing down, getting your
Yeah.
breath in line.
But sometimes when we pick up new things, we have to drop some things. So, what was one of the most tough decisions, like personal decision that you had to make in your journey to become this version of you today?
The discipline aspect, because as you grow as a human and grow as a professional, there's some people that aren't going to grow with you. And I'm a firm believer in the principle, the five people that you're around, surround yourself with, it morphs into you. And the discipline of that is, unfortunately, at times you have to say no. And it's very difficult if you have a personality of a helper or a servant, which you have and I have. So it's difficult at times you want to help everybody, right? That's why you do what you do. That's why I do what I do. I want to help as many people as I possibly can that have the desire to be helped in the world that I play in.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I do a lot of, Mark, is thinking intentionally on what I'm doing relative to the action that I'm taking and how does that help RJ and how does that help RJ's family, because that's my core principles of RJ and family, move forward, or is this distracting? And sometimes if it's not moving forward but it makes me feel good and I'm enjoying it, that's okay too, because your body needs that. You need that change.
So many industries, so much experience. What's your process for identifying high leverage growth opportunities?
When I was CEO at Unify and with our sales team, I would talk about my principle when I was carrying a bag. I started as an individual contributor, calling on dealers just like they're doing. So I walked their walk for many years. And I always believed in this philosophy. If I could have, many people call them this, but if I could land one or two whales a year, and what I mean by that, I called these relationships, and calling them a whale is actually disingenuous to the element of the people that you're trying to attract. But if we could land one significant account in our world, that's volume, what they call referred potential financing volume. If you think of a car dealership, when you go buy your car or lease your car, the car dealership has banks that they work with. We're that one of those banks that a construction dealership that's selling a backhoe would be. You look at top line revenues, you always looked at growth, you looked at the management team, and you discern from that, are they a growing entity that I want to hook my wagon to grow with because there's tremendous upside and I'm willing to put in all my effort to that. However, you can't lose sight of your other contributors to your organization when you're chasing the larger opportunities. And I always felt that I always had to have one. And I can point during my career that one relationship in each chapter that said that relationship got me to the next level. That relationship, and I can do it over and over again. And I'm thinking of my reps, right? And sales reps that I had, all of them followed that model and they're all extremely successful because you have your core flow, right? You have your core relationships that provide, in my world or in any business world. It'd be like a restaurant that has a large contract with a local university that they're taking care of. And that's the gravy. And then the core customers, right? Your everyday customers is what's keeping the lights on, keep the business running. I always feel that you need one of those life-changing type of relationships that will push you forward to the next level that you desire. If you desire that. Some companies, that's just my philosophy.
Yeah. You talked about how you think, you talked about how you maintain peak performance. You also mentioned a little bit ago about pivoting versus persisting. So, how do you decide when to pivot versus when to persist? Because so many of us don't know where that line is. And sometimes we're too deep and we wish that we hadn't done it, or sometimes we're too resistant. So, how do you go about managing that?
I firmly believe intuition more than anything else, especially as you get older. Your gut
Mhm.
tells you. And I can look back so many times when it's after the fact. I have a situation right now that I'm working through that my gut is telling me, pull the plug, pull it. And for some reason, I'm emotionally attached to it, right? And I haven't pulled it. And I keep thinking, and a year from now, you're going to look back to May 2nd and say, you should have pulled the damn club or the damn plug. And the reason being, again, it's intuition, I believe. Now, there's certain things that whatever business you're in, you learn, and you learn the gray area, I call it, of business, where you have to be emotionally intelligent, situational intelligent of the problem. And here's the next thing, the last thing in regards to that. I always make sure that I'm learning or looking back, or the people that I'm leading, we look back and learn from each situation, because guess what? There's no such thing as failure. If you are learning from it and pivoting and taking that knowledge that you gained in the experiences and relationships and using that knowledge going forward, right? So that's the way we look at it. So failing doesn't feel as bad if you're getting something from it. The other thing, this world that we live in today with AI and the way that the world is changing, change management for business owners and entrepreneurs is a key ingredient right now for success. And I firmly believe in the companies that we're consulting right now, it's not so much about these tools and getting these tools into the business. It's really defining your SOPs and defining who you are, and then starting to look at the different AI and putting strategy behind that. Because I talk to so many organizations, Mark, that relative to AI, there is no strategy around it. There's no guidelines. They're using it, which I applaud. That's great. But you're going to get to a point of AI fatigue because you're not using it the right way. Back to peak performance. It's like you threw keys to a 20-year-old for a Porsche, for a beautiful car, and they drove it hard, but they never changed the oil because they didn't know they had to.
Yeah. I actually know somebody who bought a car and for years and years in college, they did not know that they had to change oil. It's funny you mentioned that. We talked about failures, we talked about learnings from it. So, what were some experiences that Everbank and Key Equipment Finance
Yeah.
that you had that shaped your approach at Unify?
Boy, I will say I formed my first leadership learnings at Key Equipment Finance. And it was under a gentleman by the name of Adam Warner, who was my mentor, former CEO. And just from his perspective, how to lead a growth organization, because I was fortunate enough because you lead differently in different organizations, right? If you're scaling, if you're growing, if you're maintaining, if you're pivoting. And what I learned from Adam is to be open to be open to different situations and different opportunities. Just because it doesn't fit who the business is today, you never know what you're going to evolve to down the road. And that was very challenging for me back early on, because I was a very yes or no type of person. It's like, I don't have time to build that relationship if it's not going to bring me value, right? It's a long game versus short game. And he taught me the long game. He said, RJ, I appreciate you. You're a high achiever. You're a go-go A personality, but you have to take time to build the relationships. You have to take time to get to know the person and understand them before you just start doing the business. And I was never taught that. So that was a learning there. And then at Everbank, I worked for a gentleman by the name of Mike Jones, servant leader through and through, a no BS ex-military guy, tells you the way it is. But in the same respect, he has your back, and he'll do anything for you. He'll run through a brick wall, but you know where you stand. And that showed me to be a good, strong, disciplined leader and really tell it the way it is. People don't have time for the fluff and the just get to the bottom line and move forward. And at Everbank, I had to re-engineer myself and relearn myself, because in our world, there's different markets, and we pivoted to a different market. So I had to restart my education process again. So when I landed at Unify as CEO, I had all that different experiences that I could pull from, and I felt I was ready to walk into that role. Scared as all get out, but I walked into it. And Paul Frechette is another mentor of mine. And when I was nervous about taking a CEO role, which was my first role, I called Paul, and Paul said to me, I said, Paul, there's going to be things I don't know. He goes, damn, there's going to be a lot of things you don't know, RJ. I said, but how do you handle it when you're sitting in a meeting and your whole team looks at you for the answer? How do you handle that situation? And he said, and Paul's a very polished, sophisticated. He said, RJ, you just sit back in your chair, take a deep breath, look at the person who asked you the question and say, that is a great question. How would you handle it? He goes, just do your sale. You're just selling. Or say, I don't know. That's a great question. What are your thoughts? And then start that dialogue. He goes, but I'm going to tell you right now, RJ, and he would talk to me like this. Do not fake it. If you do not know the answer, do not try and assume an answer. Do not try and make up an answer, because you will lose all credibility like that.
Now that you're in the AI world and you're working with companies, and as we mentioned, not a lot of companies are understanding the force that they're dealing with and not adapting to it. What is one myth about AI adoption in traditional industry that frustrates you the most?
The fake hallucinations, or that they say the outputs aren't correct. Like anything, your outputs are only determined by your inputs. And if you do not know how to prompt correctly, you're right, your output is not going to be what you're looking for. So we really focus a lot around teaching people how to prompt. And there is a certain stack of how you're interacting with the different models, the different transponders. And I don't care if you're in Grok, if you're in ChatGPT, if you're in Manus, it doesn't matter. So that's why we focus on the prompting and educating business owners as well as humans on how exactly to structure your prompts. And again, this is very early because they're just learning how to prompt. But the more sophisticated users who have spent the time that I have spent on it understand it, and we can test out and show them by changing one single word in the prompt and or the way that the scaffolding is built of the prompt. You take one piece out and we can show them the difference in their answer. The other thing, Mark, that's very important as individuals use ChatGPT or any transponders is they create a bias of what you're putting into it. You should always end your prompt, or one of your last prompts should ask it to play devil's advocate, or what am I missing that we have been discussing here that is a significant risk to what we're trying to achieve? And it will tell you. And then you can start the dialogue around that. And you're right, it's an amazing, powerful tool. It can be used in so many different areas. And from a business perspective, I'll give you one quick tactical idea for a business owner right now. If you just took your AI for your customer re-engagement, if you went through and looked at any clients that maybe you've engaged with but haven't talked to go back through those emails, and you can have ChatGPT analyze the dialogue back and forth, then ask it, I want to re-engage with this customer. It will build out that plan for you. And there's things that we've used personally in our business that's, wow, I completely missed that, because we have our own human biases, the way we read and perceive things. Everything is through our lens. You use the AI, you're getting a second set of eyes on what you're trying to achieve. And I'm just using that right now as a sales example, but you can use that in job description. You can rewrite your job descriptions if you want to. You could rewrite your processes and procedures. You could actually ask it just to build it for you. You can go in Manus, prompt it and say, I am a consulting firm for in engineering. I work in Ann Arbor, Michigan. This is my client base. Please go out and search the internet for potential RFP opportunities. Build me out my marketing plan. You can build everything. However, as I tell people, start small. Don't try and take over the word with AI. Start small with a beta product. And then as you learn, that's when you start expanding and really leveraging it with the automation.
You have your own framework called the ABLE framework, which is effective at turning AI challenges into wins. Tell us a little bit about that.
So ABLE is a concept that we developed at Unify around the term intrapreneurship too. I speak around entrepreneurs and the value they bring to organizations. ABLE stands for analyze, build, leverage, execute. And if you think of it as a continuous circle for any major decision or process within your organization, we use it as a management team. So if someone would raise an opportunity, because we didn't want to call challenges, but an opportunity within the organization to make something better, we would run it through the ABLE filter, which we have pre-designed questions for our industry and our business, and we build those out for other industries to work through, because it might be something that if you're stack ranking opportunities for improvement for resources, it might say, you know what, within your business, it falls down here. Okay. And that's what the ABLE does. It prioritizes these around, is it revenue generating? Is it customer journey? Is it maintaining customers? And we look at that. So it runs through that filter, and it just gives a framework that everyone is on the same page within an organization and stack ranks those opportunities so no one feels their voice isn't being heard. And when you talk around entrepreneurship, 75% of individuals within an organization have ideas because they're in the trenches every day. However, leadership and management don't give an opportunity for those ideas to be shared from ideation. So when you start sharing those ideas in ideation, you have to have that filter to run them through so everyone understands of what you're trying to do, that is aligned with the mission, vision, and values of the organization. I just said a lot and it sounds like a lot, but the ABLE, what it does, it breaks it down to really small pieces on any situation. And we actually use ABLE in our household, as crazy as that sounds. We're making a decision on something. All it is just giving us the framework to follow. And you can use, it was ABLE that I developed. I have a book, ABLE Leadership, that I'm coming out with, but it was just an acronym and framework. And then we just continue to work and evolve on it. And we've actually built a transponder for our business around it too, that we can just put in an idea and it knows what questions to ask.
Taking a step back, what exactly is entrepreneurship and how it's different than entrepreneurship?
So an entrepreneur is a person who thinks like an entrepreneur, but they work within the confines of an organization. And the reason we leverage entrepreneurship mindset and culture within Unify, we were able to grow the business. We grew the business close to 200%, okay? But we were able to reduce our cost of services being provided 33% due to the fact that we were just so focused on the ABLE concept of improvement. And when that becomes part of your culture, it just naturally happens. So what we would do is, our philosophy was, we could take costs out of the business and we could pass that on to our customers, as well as attracting a higher talent field, because we would put in our job descriptions, entrepreneur mindset required. And the reason being is, we would tell people when we were interviewing them, our goal and our job here is, this is the job description that you're fulfilling today. But if we give you the proper culture and proper environment, a year from now, that job description will be completely different, because we want you to be forward looking and forward thinking in your role of things that we can take off of your job description at low value and transition to high value. And now the person gets excited because now they're not working on manual tasks that are brain numbing, and they become a vital key. We have vital and functional employees, team members. The vital are your entrepreneurs, and your functional, and they're both important. They're equally important. And your functional are the people that they just all day long, they know what they do and they get it done, where your vital are looking at the processes, the inputs, the outputs, and making those decisions. And entrepreneurship, most products that you look at, McDonald's Happy Meal, entrepreneurship idea. 3M stickies, yellow stickies, an entrepreneur idea. These weren't set up in R&D shops. It was from a human that had an idea that said, our customers need this. And they were resourceful enough and pushed through to develop these ideas. Now, what our teaching around entrepreneurship is around more process focused and not product development.
How do you go about identifying the potential entrepreneurs in your team? Because even in the hiring process, everybody's going to say yes to it. Right? So how do you actually pick out the ones that you think are good?
So there's really characteristics you look for within the individual. The first one being is that they're extremely just passionate about life. They're just that person like you. They're just always upbeat. Just, you can tell. So that's the first thing, is just from a visual look. The second piece, are they a life learner? Do they listen to podcasts? Are they reading? What do they do in their spare time? The third one is, are they resourceful? Because an entrepreneur is going to have to influence other individuals into the organization that maybe don't directly report to them of what they're trying to accomplish as an entrepreneur of fixing something. I'll give you an example of that. Back in 2014, I was newly appointed CEO of Unify. I had a program manager come to me that we actually hired as a credit associate. I quickly identified him as an entrepreneur, very quick, extremely quick. He came to me, so I transitioned him to sales from a revenue generating position. He came to me and said, RJ, we need a online portal to take payments from our customers. Was not on my radar at all. I said, completely agree with you, Tyler. However, it's not in the budget as we speak right now. if this is something that you want to take on, so I teed it up, if it's something you want to take on your own time, I will fully endorse, but you have to understand there's no budget allocated for this, so we have to manage accordingly. The second thing is that you're still going to be responsible for your day-to-day activities, so this is going to be something extra. He said, I want to take it on. And the reason why an entrepreneur wants to take it on, they want to go and learn. They're not afraid of learning. They're not afraid of failing because they're going to take that knowledge that they learned from and go forward with it. Long story short, 4 months later, we have an online portal. Our cost was maybe $1,000. We now, on a monthly basis, they process close to $250,000 monthly through that portal. And it's all because of Tyler's, because I'm focused on customer journey was always my North Star. And if it's going to make a better experience for our customers, I'm all for it. So back to your question, specific question, it's really just what's amazing too, when you tag someone with that title of entrepreneur, they glow. They have a complete, their voice is being heard. And that's what happens when you create a culture like that within a business, that there's a sense of ownership. And the other thing that's we've studied, the discretionary effort and engagement go up tremendously because now they have a vested interest in the business. People that you talk to or you come across and they don't listen, I don't have a say, and they just feel defeated and they're not engaged. You give them the opportunity to now be engaged and be part of the business.
We talked about identifying entrepreneurs and giving them opportunities. What about on the other side? So for companies, what kind of change needs to happen within the culture of the company and the operation of the company so that they could turn entrepreneurship from a buzzword into a reality?
It has to become part of the culture. It's not an initiative. And the clients we work with, we actually turn away a lot of clients to a certain degree because if management doesn't have a full commitment to an operating system like this, then you're going to fail. Matter of fact, when we do fail, you're going to be in a worse position because we come out with this. So as soon as the management team, and when I say management team, it's just not the CEO or president, it's the entire management team is bought into this. Then we start the whole discussion around bringing it to the team with a defined discipline rollout. And the goal would be a year from now or 2 years from now, it's just part of your normal culture. You're not talking about it as you're an entrepreneur and I'm an entrepreneur. It's because you start with the idea sharing and go back to the able where you're filtering the ideas through able because you will offend someone eventually. It will happen that their idea wasn't looked upon or used. So that's where you have to go back to the contextual knowledge of the team members to ensure that the ideas they're giving are relevant to what your business is. And there has to be that alignment. Because I have a situation where we've had past situations where ideas are being shared because we didn't do a good enough job of outlining to ensure that the contextual knowledge is there, that when the employee gives the idea, it's relevant to the business and not we're going off in some tangent. So that's what we start with. And then we roll it out to the team. And then we have a tool called Vetter, which gives exposure to all the ideas with Able. So again, there's a lot it sounds like a lot, but we have it so tight now. We roll it out within a month. And by 6 months, it's naturally happening. And with a year, they see the change from a cultural and engagement perspective, which affects the bottom line eventually.
Yeah. But promoting entrepreneurship within a company sometimes can be perceived by leaders as losing control. So, what would you say to the leader who's listening to this, who's afraid that encouraging entrepreneurship would mean losing control? What would you tell them?
Check their ego. Seriously, because guess what? I was that guy. I'm
Yeah.
Superman. I can do it all, right? I don't want to give up control. And it is scary to give up control at certain times. However, the greatest leaders leverage the people that they're surrounded with. You had a choice when you started your business who you're going to surround yourself with. And if you didn't pick people that you could rely on, that have your back, that understand what you're trying to achieve as the visionary, because most entrepreneurs are visionaries, right? They are trying to solve a problem. You really probably have to do some self-reflection. And again, every bit I've been through this, everyone's been through this. So it's just part of growth. And I would just tell that person, give me a scenario that would be the worst case scenario of you giving up a little bit of control.
Yeah.
And I would tell that to our team at Unify. I would say, there's nothing that any of us can do in this business that's going to take down this business. The business is bigger than all. So I'm willing to give you enough rope. And I know there's nothing you can do that we can't overcome.
Yeah. But what was the turning point in your life when you didn't want to be Superman anymore and you wanted to go about it this way?
We talked about earlier burnout.
The burnout. Wow.
It was the burnout. And I'm always seeking knowledge. I'm always seeking ways to do things better. And it was ego. It goes back to, it was like, I can do it all. I can control, and it's ego. And as soon as you work through that and start seeing the amazing results that your team can do without you being in the way, but it goes back to selection of your team.
Yeah. What growth levers other than AI do you see companies underutilizing in 2025?
I think business owners, the human piece of this AI is probably more important than the AI.
What does that mean?
That means that AI can use sales as an example, right? As I talk to sales managers or CEOs, I spoke at a national sales meeting a couple of weeks ago in California, 45 sales individuals. And as I told their chief revenue officer, AI will not take a bad sales professional and make them a good sales professional. It's not going to happen. However, what AI will do, it will take a good or great salesperson and can make them world class because they already have the skill set and the foundation of being a good sales professional. Now they're going to take these tools and make them more efficient, and they're going to be able to touch more people and do things faster with the personalization that AI brings.
Can you give one example? So if I'm a good salesperson listening to this and I want to utilize AI to become great, what is one specific example of something that I can prompt AI to get better?
Take every email that you've sent in the last month on any front, because we all have different emails, right? One is to a prospecting, one is to a current customer, one might be to, we all have different emails. You take those emails, load them into a Google Doc or in a Word document, and then enter them into ChatGPT. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to send you a prompt, Mark, that you can share, okay, with your listeners.
Yeah.
To ask to review those emails and pick out parts that should be added to, taken out for the situation. And we've done that. And you go through that and you're like, why were we saying that? Doesn't resonate with anyone? Because we get caught into the fluff words and the buzzwords and not just cutting through the meat and getting to the bone. That's one thing that they can do. The other thing that they can do is take their, and again, this is all predicated that they're in a private tenant. So they're in ChatGPT, they pay the $20 a month, their data is protected. Take their financial statement from last year and enter it in there and ask them, give me the 5 top trends here. Tell me about where I missed. Tell me things that I can improve on from a financial perspective and start that dialogue with it. You'll be blown away by things that will point out to you, you missed this. Why aren't you doing more there? You could also put in your revenue stream. Same thing. Put in your revenue streams that you have from different clients, if you have multiple clients, and say, is there anything I should be concerned about with these clients? And it'll go out to the internet and look at the industry as a whole. Perplexity with Deep Dive, if you're using Perplexity Deep Dive, it's an absolutely incredible tool to do any deep research on any topic at all. And then ask it to also point out headwinds, future opportunities. It can lay out your roadmap for you.
We get into a section of the podcast now where we do some rapid fire questions. So whatever comes to your mind, just shoot. Okay. We'll get started. When you're scaling a business, what matters most? Speed or sustainability?
Speed.
What's one business book you think is overrated and one that is underrated?
Underrated, I think the E-Myth is crazy. I think that it should be a prerequisite that everyone that starts a business has to read that first. Because most of us start a business and you get a job. You're not getting a business. And that's okay too. But if you really want to grow a business, you should read that. And probably the most overrated is every sales book that's ever been printed, because all it's doing is regurgitating the same stuff over again. However, it's now through the lens of the person, the author of the book.
If you had to launch a startup tomorrow with zero budget, what would it be?
Zero budget, start something tomorrow. Boy, that's a great question. I would say, and this is going to go against everything that I'm doing, I would probably start that's personal in my market, in my city. I don't know what that would be, but it would be not technology related, as crazy as that sounds. Because I think there's going to be a point where this technology is going to become too much and people are going to be like, I just want to meet with somebody to have a discussion, to do the deal, do the business, whatever I'm doing. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people, like for us, example, we love to shop local. I want to support local business owners and entrepreneurs. Now, I have to use Amazon. I don't like using it, but you have to, because it's convenience. But if I could go buy that good at a local company and support my local economy, and I think more and more people are going to start thinking like that or want to do that because they're going to get fed up with customer service of trying to get in touch with Amazon, or people are going to have that burnout. And I think that's, if I had no budget, I would start something in my local community, also with the idea that, and I'm in a place in my life that I don't need to go make. I don't need to. I'm a chapter now. I don't have to say I have to go make this. So you lose all scalability, right? If you're local.
Yeah.
But that's for me where I am today.
Yeah. AI assistant or human intern, who's more reliable?
AI.
What's your guilty pleasure when no one's watching?
Guilty pleasure when no one's watching. I would say my guilty pleasure when no one watching is probably, that's a tough one. How deep do I want to go? Man, I don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't have a lot of guilty pleasures that I hide behind anybody. I love cigars. I love martinis. That's about as crazy as it gets, Mark. Sorry.
Okay, we'll go opposite of guilty pleasure. Last question. What's a weird productivity hack that actually works for you?
Weird project. I don't do this anymore, but back in the day, I would always I'd call myself and leave myself messages on my office line of like my brain dump, like I mentioned earlier. I was
Yeah.
doing that. This is in 2005, 2006, because I had an hour commute and I would just
Wow.
be thinking. And this was before you had recorders or all the tools that we have now. I would call and leave a voicemail. Hey, tomorrow,
Yeah.
don't forget to do this.
Yeah. Wow. I love it, RJ. I love it. Thank you for giving us a glimpse into your mind. We want to understand the mind of somebody who's built so many things and is the cutting edge of innovation. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life. What are you working on? How do people connect with you?
Sure. Our website is the AICEO.ai. I'm on LinkedIn, RJ Grimshaw. You can Google RJ Grimshaw, and there's plenty of ways to contact me, or just RJ at the AICEO.ai. And what we are really focused on right now is just AI tools and how you're leveraging them and ensuring that the strategy is aligned with how you plan on using them. AI is too big of a word when you say we're going to use AI. It's like, where are we going to start to focus on it as a leadership team and start wedging it in there with the automation? And then the other piece of it is the data that business owners have that they don't leverage. We all are sitting on golden acres of data. And when I say data, I'll use an example of a restaurant again. There's a local restaurant here. I went to their president, I know, or their owner. I went to him. I said, "You don't track. I come here once a week, and you never track in and outs." And I said, "It's too easy now with these tools not to do this, and be proactive with your marketing and messaging to your client base." I think there's a huge opportunity that people are going to want personalized engagement with the businesses that they're engaging with in their community. I'm not talking about spam. I'm not talking about just email overload, but for certain situations for companies to put in front of them birthday wish, we haven't seen you in a while, we hope you're okay.
Yeah.
Things of that nature where, oh, shoot, they thought of me, right?
Yeah.
Just little things
Absolutely.
like that. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. RJ, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope to talk to you soon again.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.